Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a preview for another Pro Tour race, this time a stage race starting in Europe. Hopefully your fever after the Tour de France is gone now, because we're all kind of just riding and wondering when will another edition of the Tour de France arrive. It's only a year away by now, and I'm going to be doing the previews for the first two stages of the 2020 Tour de France very soon, right? We already know the details for that. But I wanted to do a preview on a race that's taking place in Central Eastern Europe, and what's kind of more of a Central Europe where it takes place. And wanted to give you an update on Tour de Pologne, which is a world tour race starting on Saturday, and it's a first major stage race marking a second part of the season. So the preparation for the culmination of the stage racing season in Vuelta España. And traditionally, this is where the favorites would actually start their preparation for Vuelta España. Usually, the way it goes is, there's two tracks in preparing for Vuelta, but a stage racing track would start actually here at the World Tour, Tour de Pologne, which is actually the most important stage race in this part of Europe. And it's a major stepstone again for preparation of the tour of the Vuelta. So the other one would be, of course, going through Clásica Sebastián, and then the two tracks would kind of culminate in Vuelta Burgos, a small stage race in Spain. So the teams from there, from those two races, Clásica Sebastián and Tour de Pologne, and then also the Classic in London would culminate usually in Vuelta Burgos, depending on their preparation track, if they have done the tour or not. If they have not done the tour, then they're probably racing Burgos, right, to get better. If they have done the tour, they're probably resting. Anyway, Tour de Pologne is a major race, in preparation for Vuelta. And as we saw last year, right, with Simon Yates winning the final hilliest stage and be very competitive. He got second in the Tour de Pologne. He won the final stage on a breakaway. And then, of course, he won the Vuelta España. So, we're going to have to watch very carefully who does really well over here and who is on form, because these guys generally feature in Vuelta and feature very, very high. So it's going to be important to see who is on form. A lot of good climbers are coming to stage race in southern Poland this year as well. So the tour is actually famous for what? For circuit races, right? For very hilly Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Flèche-Wallonne type of hills, and very hard stages. In the past, I felt they were almost too hard for the riders, right? That kind of deterred a lot of people from coming. But as you know, the winners in the past have been just fantastic. I mean, you're looking at Rafał Majka, you're looking at Michael Kwiatkowski, you're looking at Dylan Tunis, you're looking at Johnny Ziger, right? So all the guys, famous riders. I mean, looking back, I'm gonna pull it up real quick here. But looking up from, I'm pulling up the winners. Winners. Right, we'll see who has won in the past. But even looking up from Maurizio Fondriest in the back, I mean, look at this. So 2018, Michael Kwiatkowski. 2017, Dylan Tunis. 2016, Tim Wellens. And then Rafał Majka, Johnny Zigier, Peter Winning, We also have Don Martin and Jens Voigt. Uh, we have Kim Kirchen, Schumacher, Laurent Brochard, even like in the past, Sergei Ivanov, Rolf Jarman, Maurizio von Driest. I mean, those are major, major names, you know, in the last year throughout cycling. So basically, the stage race supports a fast climber puncher, almost like the Flèche Wallonne or the Liège Bastogne Liège type. Now, usually the racing is done in two different kind of categories of races. Usually, the first three stages, 3 to 4 stages, are fast finishers, right? This is why the sprinters love, Tour de Pologne, because it actually figured out that from the long stages and previously, I mean, it had some crazy stages like 250 kilometers. It actually has shortened down the stages to sprinter stages to like 150 130k, so they certainly have it made that right adjustment. And some of the top sprinters at the Tour de Pologne, it's basically kind of almost like a graduation into the next big stage. So very often we discover, especially with sprinters, a sprinter that really does well here and then goes on to really make it big. I mean, several names come to mind, but one big name recently that really has gotten discovered at the world tour level in the Tour de Pologne is Caleb Ewan, who would come to Tour de Pologne last 2 years and would win stages there. And now, of course, we know this year he kind of solidified himself as probably the best sprinter in the world, if not the one of the best, but that's arguably, but what he did in the Tour de France, we all saw. So there's two parts to the stage: flat, 3-4 stages, and then we're going into the hills and finally into the mountains, right? And although they're going to be racing near some big mountains, right, over 2,000 meters and over 2,500 meters, so alpine style mountains, typically Tour of Pologne takes place in the foothills. Okay, it has gone into a bigger 11, 12, 13 kilometers climbs in the past. Of course, when it started in Italy and when it went on a Polish kind of, went through Polish and Slovakian borders in the Tatra Mountains. But typically a race, if it goes into this part of Poland and Slovakia, stays in the foothills of the Tatra Mountains, foothills of the Carpathians, which Tatra Mountains are the biggest range in those mountains. So typically staying in the foothills around Zakopane, a range of the mountains would be probably around 1,200, 1,300 meters, so medium sized mountains, but it doesn't really follow the medium mountain size kind of climbs, 7, 8, 9 kilometers. It follows more of a punchy, really hard climbs that are up to about 2.5, 3 kilometers, but super steeps. So that definitely gives an advantage to a puncher and to a guy that would do really well in in races like Flèche Wallonne, would do really well in races like Liège Bastogne Liège, even Amstel Gold Race. A rider that does well in the Tour of Lombardy, Classica Sebastião, a rider almost like somebody like Julian Alaphilippe, right? Or even one of the Yates brothers, who seem to be a little bit lacking on those super long climbs, although Simon did win certainly Vuelta last year. So the first 3 stages are flat. Okay, they're fairly hilly, but they shouldn't interfere the hills that are on the first 3 stages with a sprinter's battle. And we have some big sprinter names in this year's race. So the first three stages are around Krakow. They go south, right, towards the Slovakian border. And if you know the area, the further, it's about 90 kilometers from Krakow to the border of Poland and Slovakia. And basically, you're just getting more mountainous as you go south. Um, so those first three stages would be around Krakow. The welcome change this year and last year is that they've shortened those stages, right? So no longer you have those behemoths like 230, 250 kilometers. You have 130, 150 kilometer, very often ending in a circuit race, right? Famous balloons, as we all know. The advertising there is pretty crazy, but balloons. We'll talk about the balloons, right? But it probably is a stage race that has the most advertising balloons in the world, right? But we'll talk about it as we get in. But yeah, the circuit stages with the finishing circuits, very good idea for a spectator. The spectator can see the race go by at least twice, if not three times. So, for spectator is a good idea. For showing off a country, right? Not sure, especially if you get into the hills. But that's just the style of the race. Every race has its own style in professional cycling at the World Tour level. This is a top level. So, first three stages. I'm looking again 130, 150k, slightly hilly, but not too bad. Pretty good finishes. This race is always known for being pretty good on finishes. It has roundabouts usually, right? But they come within 1 kilometer, away 1 kilometer to go, which still could cause some problems. But typically the road surface is pretty good, and at the finishes, and it's pretty safe. It has traditionally, kind of gathered big sprinters, right? And this year, of course, we have the guys that we featured super well in the Giro d'Italia. And first name, usually this would be a battle between two top sprinters that are coming to to Tour de Pologne. So we've got Pascal Ackermann from Bora that is coming to Tour de Pologne, powerful sprinter. Of course, you want the points jersey in Giro d'Italia, winning 2 stages, and he got, I think, 1 or 2 second places too. So definitely one of the world's top sprinters, young gun. Definitely he's being groomed for the Tour de France. Okay. Now, of course, there's an issue in the Tour de France because Bora has Peter Sagan going for a green jersey, right? I think Pascal Ackermann is faster than Peter Sagan in a pure sprint. He is he's kind of he has capabilities of Caleb Ewan and Dylan Groenewegen and Elia Viviani. He probably is a top 5 sprinter in the world, and certainly proved that at this year's Tour de France. He's definitely the man to beat at the first 3 stages of the Tour de Pologne. However, we have one more big gun coming in to this year's stage, and his major competitor from Giro d'Italia, Fernando Gaviria from UEA Emirates, is coming, and he's definitely a major competitor. Obviously, winning all the air this year and winning. Coming second and winning one of the Tour stages, one of the Giro d'Italia stages as well. Big time sprinter. I'd probably say he's also a top 5 sprinter. I would probably say it's Caleb Ewan, Dylan Groenewegen, Elia Viviani, Pascal Ackermann, and Fernando Gaviria. Not in that order, but it's just top 5 sprinters in the world. 2 of them will be at Tour de Pologne, and they've done extremely well this year, winning several races. Basically, wherever they show up, they're winning. So it's going to be interesting. Now, here is the big news for Tour de Pologne. Mark Cavendish is going to make his return at the Tour de Pologne. It's going to be very interesting to see if he's competitive because they're grooming him for Vuelta España. So, they're going to be watching him very closely. Obviously, very disappointed after his not selection, right? After he was not selected for Tour de France. We've all known there was an infighting on a Dimension Data team, and he was not selected. Well, here is his chance. Although he's probably disappointed, here is his chance to prove that he can sprint against the top guys, right? So he's going to get at least 3 chances to do that. Some of the other guys that are going to be competitive in the sprint, we have some other big sprinters. John Degenkolb, right, needs a big victory. It has been a slower year for John Degenkolb. He's only 31 years old, so he can still do well, but he would do really well in this race and hopefully go on to Vuelta and be competitive there. But it's going to be interesting what John Degenkolb can do. Slightly a slower year for John Degenkolb this year. I want to see what he has done this year. Kind of looked it up before. Let's look at John Degenkolb and what he has done. Johnny. Where is Johnny? Johnny. I think he had a win this year. Yeah, third on one of the stages of Tour Suisse. Second in the World Tour race in Germany, Eckebom Frankfurt. Second in Gent-Wevelgem in a sprint finish. So not really a great season, right? Third and fourth in Paris-Nice in one of the sprint stages. He did win one race in a Tour de la Provence early in the year. So definitely he needs a result, right? Good sprinter. We'll see how he fares against Mark Cavendish and more importantly against Ackermann and against Fernando Gaviria. Fabio Jakobsen is a rising star in the classics and also in the sprints. I'm going to be very interested to see him sprinting and also sprinting in one of those hard men sprints that is coming on stage 5. But watch out for him. The Kunik, Fabio Jakobsen, is a man that could be established right here. He had a fantastic season, winning all over the place, and we'll see how he does against the big sprinters. He's obviously a champion of Holland, right? He won that in a sprint. Denny Van Poppel is another one that needs a victory. Sasha Modolo could be there. Also, Max Walshed from Sunweb could be competitive. But we have some big sprinters in this year's Tour de Pologne. Now, the hills begin on stage 4, right? We're going into the hills. Tour de Pologne is again a brutal stage race. It's got a lot of crazy hills. And stage 4, I'm just trying to find the profile of stage 4 here. There we go. All right. So second part of the stage is 173 kilometers. And this is where we're going to get the first look at the guys that can actually win this Tour de Pologne and do well in a Vuelta. We have 3 climbs of Kościerz, right? 3 climbs of Kościerz, and the final one is from the hardest side. And Kościerz, make sure that you tune in actually to stage 4, because it's just going to be fantastic, right? It's a hill sprint finish, all right. And I looked it up. It kind of supposedly has a very modest 3 kilometers at 7.2%. So we have 4. This is the 5th hill, the final hill in the stage. We have 5 climbs. We have 2 category 1 and 2 category 2. They're not like in the Tour de France. But the end is very hard, and we have the final climb as well. The 2 previous, because it's a circuit race, the 2 previous times that we go up to Kościerz, we go a different side, but it's still 3 kilometers at 7.2%. However, the final time we go around, and we go around the hardest side of that climb. And again, 3 kilometers, 72% does not suggest, like in professional racing, for us, it's a very hard climb. But in professional racing, it doesn't suggest that it's a tough climb. However, look at this. So, first kilometer, right, of this climb, this is a final climb. So first kilometer is 3 kilometers to go. That would average 14.5%. 14.5% for 1 kilometer. It's got a 500-meter section at 17%, right? So this is 2.5 kilometers from the finish, and a 100-meter section at 20%. So Planche de Belle, think Planche de Belle, think those kind of gradients, right? After also a very, hilly stage. So, sections at 17%, sections at 100 meters, right? There's a 50-meter section in this climb at 25%, steeper than Planche de Belle finish in the Tour de France. So stage 4, mark your calendars and watch it, right? You can actually go to cyclingnews.com and you can actually see where you can catch the feed. The end of the race, Eurosport has it. I think a couple of other feeds will have it from Europe. So it'd be really interesting to watch the end of this this stage with this beast of a climb. Then stage 5, right? Moving on to stage 5, we would have a stage that is really a very hilly, and it finishes with like four laps around the circuit race in Bielsko-Biała, which is a south close to a Slovakian border, and it's in the Beskid Mountains, and it's a hilly end of a circuit, tough hilly day of 154 kilometers. But this one will probably end up with a strongman sprint. I would suggest there's going to be probably about 50-60 guys left in in the peloton, and I'm expecting guys like Fabio Jakobsen, who can actually climb, to do really well on something like this. There is also a rider that I often picked to win in a Tour de France strong finish, but in a race, but I didn't get him to win. He was clearly not on form, but we certainly know the name. Let's see, Barham Merida rider Matej Mohoric. Matej Mohoric can actually win from a 50-40 man group like that. John Deckenlop can also do really well here, because I think the main sprinters are going to be dropped. So watch for stage 5 to be a strong man finish out of the group of about 40 to 60 guys, with Jakobsen, with Deckenlop, with Matej Mohoric being the guys that could take this. Now, moving on to stage 6 of the Tour de Pologne. It's another stage that you should definitely tune on. Whatever you do, tune on to stage 6 of Tour de Pologne. Absolutely fantastic stage racing. This is going to be over 160 kilometers. And if you look at the profile of the stage, right? You talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 climbs packed in 160 kilometers. Circuit race again with 3 climbs, all right? 3 major climbs each circuit, and then a very fast downhill finish. So very similar to almost Clásica Sebastián. But I think this circuit, right, if it's raced right, is actually harder than Clásica Sebastián. Think about a Flèche Wallonne, right? A slightly shorter Flèche Wallonne, but I think the gradients are actually a little bit harder than Mur de Huy and Flèche Wallonne itself. But, so we have stage 3, right? The climb, let's see here. Moving on to stage 6. So, brutal again, Flèche Wallonne like type of circuit race, 12 climbs, packed into 160 kilometers. The first is we have a climb of Pitonówka, right? Pitonówka, and that is a beast. 2.2 kilometers at 10.6% average, right? We're going to be climbing this. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 5 times a climb of 2.2 kilometers that averages 10.6%. 1 kilometer averages 13%. There's ramps within that 1 kilometer that average 15%. So definitely deceptive average profile, but it already suggests at 10.6% with 2 kilometers that it's gonna be a long day for the for the riders. Now the thing about this race also is that once you get into the final 2 stages, right, you don't really have the riders don't have transfers. They don't have to move, which is again a great thing. Really well organized race, and the riders don't have to move even too far because they're staying within about 90 kilometers, okay, for the entire race. But they don't have to move the last 3 nights that they're in Zakopane, which is a kind of a holiday resort for Poland. It's a major resort in the Tatra Mountains, right? Pretty much central, I would call it a Central Europe because it's kind of right in the middle of the between East and West. So that climb will be tackled 5 times, right? Then we have another major climb that we're still climbing too, because the last climb towards Gubałówka, which is the opposite side of the town of Zakopane, looking famous view of the Carpathian and the Tatra Mountains from there. So it should be just a great views from there. They do a great coverage on a helicopter, right? Actually, it's the guys that do the helicopter in the Tour de France, I think, do the Tour de Pologne. So great views from there. The last climb is actually hard. This will be tackled. Let's see. This will be tackled once before the finish. It tops out 3.5 kilometers from the finish, followed by a very fast descent. The last maybe 300 yards is uphill. Great stage racing again, right? Super fast speeds of that final climb. The final climb is 4 kilometers at 7% average. It's certainly deceptive as well. There's a 1 kilometer at 10.5%. Within that 1 kilometer, we got 500 meters at 11 and 13.5% ramp. Super hard all day, super fast with a beautiful, this 3.5 kilometer descent towards the end. It's going to be fireworks, right? And I'm going to be talking about the favorites that are, coming here, to win. So moving on to final stage, right? And notice how the Tour de Pologne is designed. We talk about a lot about designing stage races, but I think what you should be looking at is you should be, if you were a race director, okay, and if you want to look at stepping up your stage race to the next level, possibly getting a HC or Cat 1 category, or even at the smaller circuits in the United States or in Europe or in Asia or wherever else you are, you really would be looking at the design of the Tour de Pologne. Certainly one of the oldest races in the world too. I didn't mention that too, going back way before the war. But the design of the stage race is fantastic in Tour de Pologne, right? You also don't have a time trial. Okay, so expect basically racing for the victory towards the very end, towards the last stage. Okay, the last stage is stage 7, super hilly. So we basically have 3 Flesh Vallons, right? Coming in the last 3 days, right? So imagine the Tour de France stages where you have the last 100 kilometers packed 9 category 3 climbs. This is how a Tour de Pologne will be like, right? So, very hard stage, good preparation for Vuelta. So, final stage 7, right? Expect the differences here from watching it, through past 10 years. Expect the differences here to be maybe within 20 seconds. So great stage racing here. Last year with Simon Yates and, Mikhail Kwiatkowski and Thibaut Pinot fighting for the victory. So the last stage, again, super hilly, 153.3 kilometers, racing towards the last kilometer for stage victory. Another tough day, there's a climb called Rzepiska climb, which we climb 1, 2, and 3 times on a circuit. It's a circuit race too. And just check out this climb. So it is 2 kilometers at 6.5%, not as tough as the previous climbs, but average for 1 kilometer is 11%, 100 meters at 15.5%, and 500 meters at 12%. This climb is being tackled 1, 2, 3 times, right? The other climb on a circuit is the Glicharov climb, which is a famous climb in the Tour de Pologne history. The images of riders being pushed by the spectators go all over the world, and this is the famous climb that always features in the Tour de Pologne. We'll climb this also. We'll climb this twice, the Glicharov climb, okay? What can I tell you? I mean, it's super steep, right? Let's see here. Glicharov is 2.5 kilometers, has an average of 9%, but we're looking at 1 kilometer at 12.3%, ramps up to 23%. There are 2 or 3 places on this climb where the gradient goes beyond 20%, and there's a 23%, I think, 50-meter ramp. 500 meters of this climb, 500 meters within that steep 12.2% gradient, 500 meters is at 16.3%. Super steep, right? 100 meters is at a 17% ramp. So super steep and super hard at this stage. Great training for Vuelta. The final climb is not as hard. It's a Bukovina climb. I'd say it's about 4 kilometers long. It does have the bottom section where there's like I think it's 11%. Let's just see. Last 3 kilometers, yes. So it does have it's a 3 kilometer climb. The final, again, there's going to be racing towards the last kilometer, but 3 kilometer long climb to the final at 941 meters, and the 3rd kilometer to the finish has ramps of 11-12%. So expect a racing towards the last kilometer. Make sure to stay tuned and to mark stage 4, right, and stage 6 and 7 to watch, because it's going to be fantastic stage racing, and this will give you an idea who will do really well in Vuelta, right? Now, favorites, okay? Stocked up, roster for the World Tour teams. Let's look at the roster real quick. First thing that comes to mind is a Bora team, right? Bringing in Rafał Majka, 6th overall in the Tour de France. We know him from winning stages, 6th overall in Giro d'Italia. We know him from, of course, winning polka dot jerseys and stages in the Tour de France in the past. He's won also stages in Vuelta España, He's gotten a podium finish in Vuelta España. I think it was third place. He's also gotten a fifth place finish in Giro d'Italia. He's a local boy, right? Not only he comes from Poland, but he actually comes from very close to where the route will be on stage one. He comes within 60, 70 kilometers where the stage will be, where the mountain stages will be taking place. So those are his roads. He knows these roads very well. Definitely a Boraman will be in contention. He's also supported by Davide Formolo, right, who did really well in the Giro d'Italia. And at the end of the year, he'd be competitive because at the end of the year, he's actually leaving for another team. So he's in need of results, okay? I'm also looking at a Astana team who's sending a super strong team in preparation for Vuelta. First name that comes out to, to the foray is the name of Miguel Angel Lopez, a Colombian climber who this year is really famous for, his battle with the fan in the Giro d'Italia. I'm sure you know, but the fan hit him, he crashed, and he just started slapping the guy, and he did not get ejected from Giro d'Italia, but that cost Lopez this year a top 5 place finish, right? And of course, we know Lopez from coming in the top 3 last year in a Vuelta. He did extremely well there. So he's a top favorite, a great climber. He's definitely going to be up fighting for a fight here in the Tour de Pologne. Also, Astana is bringing Ion Izagirre, fantastic season this year. Jan Hurt for support. Dario Cataldo as well. So stocked up Astana team is going to be definitely super, super competitive. What else? Who else? Another one that's really interesting that I want to see, right? I just realized that I had my air conditioner on, so sorry about that. I just realized that. Another one that's going to be really competitive that I want to hear, that I want to see on this race is EF Education Hikita, right? We know he was a huge surprise in Tour de California, the way he was climbing, and I really want to see what he does at Tour de Pologne, because if he does well at Tour de Pologne, he's going to Vuelta, and he should be a major force. He's one of the, the young Colombians that's coming in right now, right? With so he's fairly unknown, but he could be a big contract scorer, big scorer for next year Tour de France or Giro d'Italia. Watch for him to do extremely, extremely well. We also have Movistar. Movistar is bringing a very, very powerful team with Carlos Bentancur being groomed for a possible Movistar inclusion in Vuelta. Movistar is tough. Certainly Carlos Bentancur had his issues, right? In the past, great, really great climber, great rider, but, issues with, with attitude and all this stuff. One of the great Colombian climbers. We'll see if they'll include him in a Movistar team. Remember, Movistar is stocked up. Probably going to have Carapaz at Vuelta. Definitely, maybe Michael Landa even, but definitely Alejandro Valverde, maybe Quintana even. So we'll see how Bentancur will do here. He'll be supported by another great Colombian climber, winner Anacona, and also Eduardo Sepulveda from Argentina. Really powerful, good Movistar team here. Diego Ulissi, right, from UAE, fantastic rider, could do very well here. Domenico Pozzovivo is coming back, right, for Behran Merida. It's his first race. We want to see how he does. Of course, a top 10 finisher. Pretty much always in a Giro d'Italia, and he's preparing for Vuelta. He's going to be one of the candidates. Bob Jungels could have a crack. Also, I'm looking at a young Ineos because typically Ineos would be sending Michael Kwiatkowski as a leader here. He has pulled out because he was just really disappointed with his form after the Tour de France, in the Tour de France. So they, without Michael Kwiatkowski, Ineos is going to their young guns. So Pavel Shivakov and Tao Hart Geongen, right? These guys are very, very good, right? They have had, I'm sorry, no. Hart, Tao Hart. These guys had a very good, they had a very good Tour de Alps, right, before preparing for Giro d'Italia, while Hart abandoned Giro d'Italia. Shivakov, I think, was a top 10 in Giro d'Italia. So those are certainly, that's definitely, along with Sosa, they're definitely, and of course Bernal, they're definitely the future of this team, of the Ineos team. So we'll have to monitor how they do, but these guys are definitely going probably to Vuelta, supporting one of the main leaders. I think Geraint Thomas will go to Vuelta España this year. That's what I think. We'll have to see. Okay, other guys. Michael Nieve for Mitchell & Scott is coming to Tour de Pologne, preparing for his support role for the Simon Yates, or for the Yates brothers. I'm not sure which one will be riding yet in the Vuelta, but also, legendary climber. We all know Michael Nieve. We all know him from all the 3 Grand Tours, what he has done. So I probably don't have to introduce him to you. Also, Simon Spilak is coming in, very good rider, decent year, always top 10 in Tour of Romandy, Tour of Switzerland. David Atapuma and Jose Herrada could do really well also for Confidis. There's many others, but I would think that who will be competing for the victory in Giro de Pologne, in Tour de Pologne, would be Rafael Majka, the local boy, fantastic climber. I would say Lopez or Izagir from Astana, right? I want to see Carlos Bentancur did really well. I think Diego Ulissi is a major favorite for Tour de Pologne, right? I want to see Shivakov, Nieve, Spilak do well, but I really think that it would be between Izagir, Lopez, Majka, and perhaps Diego Ulissi for the victory of Tour de Pologne. All right, this was a little bit long, but I wanted to do a serious preview of the Tour de Pologne. I'm sorry for the air conditioner. I didn't realize it, right? It's just super hot here today. If you like the preview, you should definitely concentrate on, watching Stage 4, Stage 6, and Stage 7. It's going to be fantastic racing, guaranteed. It's going to give us a great look on who will the Tour de France, Vuelta España favorites be. Okay, the guys that will do well there. I appreciate you watching. And, hopefully you're riding out there, you're getting in shape. If you like the video, hit like. If you, love the channel, subscribe. Leave me comments. I'm curious about what your, thoughts are on Tour de Pologne, maybe on Classica Sebastian, on London. And I'm curious about your selection. Who do you think is going to go to the Vuelta? Who's a favorite? Who do you think Ineos is going to select for the Vuelta España? And just curious, leave me comments about who do you think the favorites for the Tour de Pologne are as well. Okay? Thank you guys. Sorry about the air conditioning again. All right, bye.